everybody. I'm William Poet. Welcome to episode 4 of AI for Knuckle-Draggers. This is the #1 AI podcast, at least among our posse. I'm here with my good friend Mike Schmitt. Schmitty, what are we going to be talking about today?
We're talking about education, right? And education and AI, and this is something that you and I have been getting an opportunity to have a bunch of conversations with people on, and about how education has prepared people for where we are today, but also kind of what do we need to do going forward to make certain our children and grandchildren and people like that are kind of ready to go. Um, and so I'm excited about talking about education today.
It's going to be a great show, and our goal for you, you listeners, is to make sure that you understand the opportunities of education using AI and leveraging it as a tool, and some of the risks. One of the biggest. Well, let's start with the goal of education, which I spent 7 years on a school board fighting to create a better environment for our kids. And the word education comes from an older Greek word to educe, to draw forth. And there is, and I believe this with all my heart, there's a genius inherent in every individual. And the goal of a great education is to tap into your God-given gifts and bring those to bloom. And that's really, our traditional education way before AI failed miserably. And I think we have a window and we have an opportunity to really serve people and serve the world in a way that is incredibly exciting. And there's also a whole bunch of potential downsides, Mike. So well, let's start with this, because this is Knuckle Draggers, are about how this stuff really works. How are you personally using AI tools to become smarter, better, more effective in what you do every day?
Well, you and I have been using AI for the last 3 years, right? Back when ChatGPT, you were on the bleeding edge, like you were within like a week of when Chat came out, and you dragged me along a little bit, kicking and screaming, about within the 3 or 4 weeks after that, and so we use it every day. But let me touch on one thing you said about how are we prepared, because my mom passed away last year, and in doing so, I had to go through and prep her house for sale, which a couple weeks ago I passed the keys on to the new buyer, which was both. It was great. It's going to be a great family moving into that house. But in doing so, I stumbled across some letters that my grandfather had written his parents back from 1915 to 1923. He went to boarding school in England. He was born in Ireland but raised in Liverpool, England, and went to a school called Ampleforth in England. And when I look at what he wrote, because I got to know my grandfather as an adult, as my grandfather, as my guy I followed around and hung on his every word. But he was a grown adult with now grandchildren, and I didn't get to see the side of him as a child. And these letters gave me a little bit of an insight as to him as a child, what his education was like, and what do they do. And I would postulate that I think he and his group were probably more ready for AI today than we are, because they were being taught Greek, and they were Homer's Odyssey in Greek, and they were being taught Latin, and they were talking French, or being taught French and the King's English back then, as well as higher end mathematics. So they were being taught how to think. And I think that one of the things I'd really hope that we'll touch on today is kind of, I think entrepreneurs in California and in the United States, entrepreneurs all around the world, are probably well suited to make AI work for them and their customers and their employees in a way, because they've had to be creative about how do they get through and make money and run their businesses. So, you know, we're using AI, we're using it every day, but let's talk a little bit about what it takes to kind of really make AI work for you.
You bring up a really great point, Mike, and I agree with you that our grandparents received a more classic education where they weren't taught what to think; they were taught how to think, and the Socratic method, and the ability to have clarity of outcome. That's one of the first things I want you guys from a practical perspective. Last year it was all about prompt engineering because the machines weren't as smart as they are today. And now when you sit down and you're using one of your tools, you're talking to your agent team, it's much more of a co-creation, and learn to lean into the machine. Have it help you clarify. This is exactly the outcome I want to create. I want to learn. I want to become well versed in physics, or I want to learn French, or I want to get better at problem solving. And how can you help me develop the muscle, develop the skill set? Versus a lot of people, and this is this cognitive offloading we have to be really careful about. People are getting lazy and they're going to AI for the answer, and they're not spending the time in that kind of higher cognitive process where we're thinking about how we're thinking about the outcomes that we want, and we're leveraging these super brains to allow us to become better, more powerful human beings, to really connect with what we're here to learn. And Mike, I think you really hit on it when you said our grandfather's generation was better equipped to use these tools than we are. Um, and tragically, you and I went to great universities, Cal Poly and Pepperdine, and we're proud of our association with those schools. But I got to be honest, as an old close quarter combat instructor, when I was going through the ranks in the martial arts, I got 15 black belt degrees, and if I'm going to be honest, 90% of what I was taught, garbage, dangerous theory. And I really had to travel around the world to sort of sift through the junk to find the gems that were valuable. And when I look back at my business education, there was a whole lot of theory, a whole lot of theory being taught, and not necessarily that practical. How do you build a business? How do you grow a market? How do you serve your customers in a way that brings real value? So, how do we discern what's valid and what's valueless, and how do we not get led down a trail by these AIs, because that's happening to a lot of people.
Well, I think you're right. And I think where you and I were using ChatGPT was the first thing that we really started getting deep in, and it had a tendency to tell us what we wanted, what it thought we wanted to hear. So there was a bit of confirmation bias, and it didn't ask a lot of probing questions. And you'd ask it a question, and it spit out an answer. And our first inclination was to kind of go with that answer and go, "Oh, okay, this is good." But what we've learned, what we've come to learn over these last few years, is you challenge everything. You ask for source documentation. Today when we do a research paper, when I have a, you know, I built my agent. My agent's called Baxter Black, named after a famous cowboy, Western cowboy poet, and a veterinarian, and a good guy, great sense of humor, and so I'm kind of as an homage to him, and kind of the way he looked at life. I want a grounded person at my side, or a grounded tool at my side that helps me with our business. And our business is family business consulting, and we do a lot of work with people that are working in industry, working in agriculture, working in real estate and construction. And so by going through and using the agents in a way to tell them that you're not going to tolerate just having smoke blown up your rear end, and you don't ever want a fact that it's guessing at. You want to know where the fact is coming from. So ask for that bibliography, ask for that source documentation for when you're asking, when it comes to you with a hard and fast data set, where did it come from? And then go through and be willing to go through and have, the way we've set up our agents, we also have it so it has some sort of bias. It's on the lookout for bias. So it's asking and confirming that the source documentation is correct, and that it actually is in existence, and it's not just been made up. Because I think 2 years ago, I think you could probably say that there was a reasonable chance that if you asked AI something, it might just invent something to make you feel good about whatever your position was.
So, if you guys are new to the show, and even our older Posse members, one of the things, 2025 was really the year of large language models. And that's where we explored with Grok and Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT. and these machines were wonderful at delivering information, to Mike's point, when we challenged them and verified. But we're now living in an agentic. 2026 is the year of agents. And if you are not operating agents right now to help you become more effective, to take over the drudgery in your life and let you elevate your thinking, then you're behind. And we want to get you up to speed as quickly as possible. And the beauty of agents, Mike was talking about Baxter and how he forged a personality for Baxter, and Baxter has content around Mike and about Mike. And my agents, my chief of staff, which has a whole bunch of agents operating underneath them, is TAT, which is short for Tatsujin. And one of the things that we've done, I had my agent team, and I want you to think about this. I have a 10-year-old MacBook Pro that has thousands and thousands of documents, personal documents, my frameworks, things that I've done for my clients and customers. And I had my agent team go in, scan every document, pull everything about me personally, everything about what I teach, how I work, the context of my business, and it built a wiki. And so there's a knowledge base, and I've actually got three different agent teams working. And when you open up a chat in ChatGPT, it doesn't really understand everything about you. They have some memories, but it doesn't have the context you need to be really, really valuable. So Baxter and Tat, our teams, have been trained not only uh, to bring a personality and a style to how we work, but to really have context about what Mike does for his profession, what I do for my living, and the other thing, and you'll learn more about this as we keep playing. Agents have legs, and so what that means is when I say, "Hey, I need you to go in and review my files," it reviewed 3,270 articles and letters that I had written that were just all over my computer, and it's synthesized and organized, and it books meetings for me, and it clears my calendar, and we're going to talk about in this show, how do you become an AI native? What does it look like when you can not offload your thinking, but offload the busy works that lets you become a better thinker? Um,
But let's talk about this too for a second, because you're further along on turning over the reins than I am, right? I mean, I'm coming with kind of a healthy skepticism, and I'm still setting Baxter up, but I bought a completely separate unit that was not mine. I wiped it clean. I reloaded the operating system. It does not, Baxter doesn't operate on the same machine that I run my business with or that I store my customer files on. I did go through and take, the book that my daughter Kate and I wrote a couple of years ago, the notes for the second book that's coming here towards the end of this year on stewardship, the 65, 68 now newsletters that we've written in the last year and a half, some research papers. I gave it its own little kind of wiki, in a way to start off with, because I'm feeding it information as I'm comfortable with it, because I'm still a little hesitant, right? As a little skeptical on, hey, is AI going to get hijacked by somebody else, and am I going to inadvertently give somebody access or data from my family customers or from my own business that I'm not quite ready for yet? And so I'm treating Baxter like a brand new employee. We've been working together for 4 months. I'm giving Baxter about the same amount of level of access to my documents that I would a relatively new employee. And so, although if you listening here haven't started an agent yet, it's in my mind, it's okay. I mean, I would encourage you to be active, working in the large learning models, getting fluent on how to communicate, challenge, getting used to asking hard questions and listening to what it spits back, and then not taking it face value. Maybe don't take it at face value for the first two or three answers until you get something that you feel like is fundamentally true. Um, but you're moving in a direction that eventually I think we will all, in the next year and a half, any of us running businesses are very likely to have an agent in our business, or maybe each individual has their own agent that helps kind of organize schedules, filters through all of the extra stuff that gets in our way to help us be more effective and efficient.
So, touching a lot of key points, and I think one of the things you said, Mike, that's really powerful is, um, be. be skeptical. Trust but verify. And one of the things that when we create or we help enterprise companies become AI native organizations, we build cells on the outside of the organization where we prove workflows and we prove concepts, and we don't migrate them into the organization until they've been tested, quantified, and proven. And so that's really what Mike is doing, and that's what we do with all of our customers when we start them. You get a box that your agent team lives in. You give that box access to only the things that you feel comfortable with, that are relevant to you. And since we're talking about education, I want to take a second and just kind of bring everybody up to speed on how powerful these tools are today. So last week, Opus released 4.8. And there are lots of metrics that we use to test the power. We have coding tests, and there's one test which, in the context of education, really matters. It's called Humanities Last Exam. There are 2,500 questions spread across 100 disciplines. All these, there are 10 basic verticals. You've got math, you've got science, you've got physics, you got the humanities, we've got chemistry. So you have these 10 core functions with probably 10 micro functions. And these 2,500 questions are all graduate level. These are the toughest questions imaginable. I ran this through and I asked what would Einstein, how high would he score in humanities last exam? Because he was an expert in math, expert in physics. And they sort of ran some numbers, and Einstein probably would have scored about 20 on humanities last exam. And 6 months, a year ago, when these LLMs were taking this test, they were scoring 6%, 7%, 9%. Last week, Opus 4.8 scored 58% on humanities last exam. And so you need to sit with this for a second, because we now have a tool available to us that is at a doctoral level or better in almost every imaginable vertical. And so if you aren't leveraging these tools, so Mike's Baxter and Tat, when we're talking, when we're brainstorming, regardless of the facet or aspect of my life, I have access to a hive mind that's never existed before. Not only is it an expert in these verticals, it speaks 100 languages, over 15 languages fluently. So how can we leverage this tool, this amazing tool that's available to everybody? Again, you got pick one of these and drop $20 on it, because yeah.
Education, and where I think the education system may have failed us, because I think the last 60 years, maybe even post World War II, education has devolved into a spot to not teach us how to think, but how to have facts and figures in our head and be able to compile them in a manner that professionally they may be valuable and useful. So, so I would say that the education that we've gotten since the 1960s in this country is inadequate to what we're now being asked to do, because now we don't have to remember every fact and figure. Now there is some value in going through and learning calculus and learning the process of building formulas and proofs and things like that, or physics. And I think there is some of that I think the exercise in itself is good. And I didn't get that when I was taking calculus in college and high school, but it serves me in a way that it's taught me how to think. But the facts and figures that I may not be able to have readily at my fingertips anymore is available in 2 seconds. And the learning that I have kind of focused on in for much of my life is what to do with those facts and figures, what to do with it, and who's going to care about what it is that I'm doing with it. And I think that we as entrepreneurs, we as business people, we as leaders of our families or of our nonprofits should be asking ourselves, how is it that we can best serve our community, our employees, and have a conversation with Claude's Opus 4.8 or Chat GPT's 5.5, and start a conversation, and maybe start two conversations with two of them, to try to see what is it that we're doing that is fundamentally, going to be made obsolete in the next 18 months? And what is it that we're doing that the community really, really values that's a differentiator so we can do more of the stuff that's truly meaningful? And I think anything that has human interaction, anything that increases our humanity and makes us more likely to be human in our communities and our companies and our with our employees is better. Anything that dehumanizes us or de-emphasizes the humanity of who we are, I'm not highly interested in continuing to pursue that. Although, part of our reason of having this conversation is how do we use AI to advance and enhance our humanity?
So great points. And, there are certain skills that we want to develop to really, in terms of using AI to learn, to become better educators, if are homeschooled as parents. And the number one most valuable skill you can have is curiosity, right? Be curious. What do these machines do? How can I play with them? How can they help me be a better, more physically fit, a better chef? How can I become a better parent? How can I problem solve? And so curiosity is critical. The other is judgment and taste. Really knowing what to ask. What are the high value questions? So we have this sort of super brain. What are, right now, most people are asking AI, help me write an email or, create a social media image for me. And one of the things I like to train our leaders on is, you have a board of directors. Imagine, you've got Socrates, Abraham Lincoln, Plato, Einstein, Newton, Sir Isaac Newton sitting in a room. What would you ask them? How do you leverage and draw? So judgment, taste, discernment. These are critical muscles for us to develop. And one of the things that, again, in terms of education, don't offload the thinking. Use AI to help you elevate the thought process. So, Mike, what's an example of how you address or tackle a problem? How do you think about thinking about AI to empower you, make you more effective, make you a better servant to the community? Because I know you spend a lot of time doing that.
First of all, don't ask open-ended questions, yes, no questions. It's just like it's not helpful, right? But I just gave a presentation to my Rotary Club on Thursday about AI and about how and Baxter helped build an 11 slide deck for me and integrate what we do, what you and I are doing here with AI and with the four-way test of Rotary. Four-way test of Rotary is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Is the second one. Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, is it beneficial to all concerned? And if we think about the four-way test at Rotary, and many service organizations have some sort of set of core values that they do, it is what you're doing consistent with what your core values are. So one of the things you might ask AI right now is, hey, this is who I am, and have a conversation. I'd like to come up with a core value statement. For me, I'm a Catholic man married for 31 years to Anne with, three daughters, and I'm active in my community, and I'm passionate about helping families stay in their businesses if they'd like to stay in their businesses and grow value, and be able to create a legacy for the future. Well,
I love that you're talking about the character component, right? And the values expressed by Rotary. Here's a use case, right? Because you guys are here, you're Knuckle-Draggers. And I found this out yesterday. I've been studying the Bible for decades and read it cover to cover, and I kind of just repeat and repeat and repeat. And I always draw something new. And in the last 2 years, I have an AI study partner, and I'll go in and I'll ask questions, and I'm going through Kings, and this I promise this is going to make sense. I'm if you've ever read Kings, it's a really challenging because there's about 100 of them, and this one did right in the eyes of God, and this one did wrong in the eyes of God, and there were all these punishments and consequences, and you can really lose the theme. And I was reading about King Hezekiah, who was considered to be one of the greatest kings of the Old Testament. And I read the Bible, I don't know how many times, and I never even focused on him. And so I used AI to explore, who were the four great kings of the Old Testament? And I'm sure you've heard of King David, King Solomon, King Joshua, and then Hezekiah. And one of the things of each of these individuals is they have a kind of a superpower and they have a shadow, and the superpower is what made them great. And so David's was faith and courage, and Solomon's was wisdom, but the shadow really led to their downfall. And I'm going through this process with my AI assistant, and then since we've had thousands of these conversations, I said, what is my superpower and what is my shadow? And I got a really, really powerful insight. And so we can these tools can be mirrors for us, and we can use, you can do the same thing with a book on physics. You can do the same thing with a book on our history. And so again, one of the goals in the show is to hopefully spark some different ways of thinking about these tools, different ways of educating yourself, and different ways of elevating yourself. And so I just thought, that was a really fun personal example for me. Is here I've, there's this great historical figure in the Old Testament that I actually had it go back and give me, what give me the 10 value lessons I should learn from King Hezekiah. And really profound and really powerful. And I couldn't have done this 3 years ago, no matter how many Bible groups or study groups I've worked with.
Well, yeah, that and I can't remember if I've already said this on this show or not, but next week I have a family council meeting with one of my families, and family councils, the way we set them up, are not necessarily operating members of the business that the family owns, but yeah, they're part of the equity stack, and so we have family councils to kind of work through and understand why is the family even still working together? Why do they own assets in common? How do they take care of elder parents or bring up next generation? And and so, Baxter's building an application for me to be able to use in this meeting next week, to where we're going to have a few exercises. Hey, is mom being taken care of? B is, what are we doing with the next generation? How do we want to bring them in? Because I think next generation isn't necessarily aware of what the value of the wealth is, but I don't think it's beneficial in this particular case to kind of even talk about how much wealth, if we haven't helped them kind of get that stewardship mentality. And 3 years ago, I could have hired somebody and done software as a service to try to build an app like this for me, and it would have cost me 15 or 25 or $40,000 to do it. And I might, but today it's going to basically be done for me in 3 or 4 hours, and it'll be at least as good, maybe even a little better than what I would have gotten, um, you know, 3 years ago. And if there's something I don't like about it, as I test it, all I got to do is go in and have a conversation with Baxter and say, hey, this didn't work. I didn't like this user interface, or this image didn't work right, or the video is slow, or whatever it is. And I'm having a real-time conversation through my telephone with my agent that's on my machine. And I'm building something that I think this family is going to find very valuable, and again, hopefully makes me a little bit different than other people they could have brought in to help them with the family. Um, but it's a real world example that I can do this every week. I can come up with a new app for a new family every week of the year, and probably even more than that. Um, and it's not costing very much money in tokens every month to have that ability.
I was doing a demo for an agent demo for a company up in Santa Barbara, and this is a great story. I'm on the drive, so I'm on an hour drive to the meeting. I'm talking to my agent while I'm driving, and I said, "Hey, research this company, and do they have an app? Because it just sort of seemed to me like it'd be a no brainer." And it's like, "Nope, they don't have an app." So I said, "Hey, build me an app demo for them that would really provide value and service." And I gave it some ideas and some specs. So by the time I got to the lunch meeting, I pulled out my tablet and we had this beautiful, fully designed UI functioning app. And the individual was blown away, and he said very similar. He was like, "We looked into doing this a year ago, and it was going to be $50,000, and it wasn't really. We were going to have to kind of fit something that wasn't custom to us in, and literally." Coded it on the way up, and for us to deliver a functional beta version of this app would probably take about a half a day, and to help you guys understand the process, it'll spin an app up in 5 minutes. But it takes judgment and discernment, and so you got to push on it. Say, well, yeah, this feature doesn't work. I need you to add this. I want more of this. I need to test it. I need to break it. One of the things we tell everybody when you're playing with AI, test it and break it. Find out what to live on the edge of this technology, be curious. What can it do for me? I've got another family that we're working with, and they have three young kids. And as an educator, there are visual learners, there are kinesthetic learners, and there are auditory learners. And unfortunately, in school, we sit kids down and we teach them one way. And if you're a challenged student or if you're a genius, you get sort of crunched into this middle metric, which doesn't nurture, doesn't fulfill, doesn't optimize. And now with an AI tutor, you have programs and you have exercises and you have homework that's designed to the specific needs, the capabilities, and the learning style of these kids. There's an Atlas AI school program out of Austin right now. And the kids are spending just 2 hours with a human and AI a tutor. Super important. We're not talking about, nor would I ever recommend handing your kid to an AI. I'm using a human facilitator to guide, to create the exercises, to engage with the kids. And, I've got some grandchildren who are going to grow up in a world where if you want to understand physics, you're going to go skateboarding with Albert Einstein. And if you want to understand mathematics, you're going to build a structural bridge and you're going to test it in a 3D world. And so the potential and possibility of customized education that is tailored to your DNA. This is now. This is happening right now. And it's more exciting than anything I've ever seen.
Well, I think and if you look at the Gallup poll or any of these CBS, Wall Street Journal, and they do approval ratings for our politicians and things like this. And AI in the last poll I saw from late April was polling at a lower approval rating than what Congress was. And Congress was at like 23 or 24%. Nobody likes Congress. Well, AI was at like 20 or 21%. I think it was partly because we've heard so many people talk about how it's going to displace people and it's going to be mass unemployment and all this other stuff. But I'm firmly I truly believe that a human being with an AI tool next to them is going to be superior to just AI by itself, and it'll be superior to just any human being by itself. And so if we have employees in our business that work well today, but seemingly or technically becoming a little obsolete, if they're willing to go through and kind of go side by side with some of these AI tools, I think you can take somebody who's culturally a fit for our customers and our other employees and elevate them. I think there's the opportunity for growth in our businesses is going to be unbelievable over the next 3 to 5 years, where we may see tripling. Elon Musk says we're going to see 10x US GDP in 10 years. That seems a little crazy to me, but I don't know. I think we're going to see some really solid double-digit growths out of our knuckle-dragging businesses because we're willing to put a little bit of AI in there, a little bit of technology in there, and still be authentic to the people who brought us there, the people who helped us serve our customers and develop the processes and systems. I'm really excited about where we're going.
Well, and I think you said something that I know to be fact, and that is an AI, a human that is an AI native is going to be exponentially more impactful. I already am exponentially more impactful because of how I'm able to use this tool and how I'm able to offload my research and how I'm able to have it do customized workouts for me. I wear a ring at night that measures my sleep scores and my HRV. And when I wake up in the morning, not only am I briefed on all things that are happening in the world of AI, I've got a custom tailored workout. that's designed for my age, my HRV, my sleep scores, my fitness goals. And so, and we really want you knuckle-draggers to pay attention. Uh, and Mike said it perfectly. A human that is learning how to synergize and leverage the power of AI is going to be exponentially more powerful than AI alone, or a human who is ignoring AI. And so, we're going to lean in every week, and we're going to challenge you guys. Start playing with it now. Start using it now. There's a New York Times article my girlfriend sent me this morning about how Silicon Valley is preparing for the potential of a great underclass, and that's a scary concept. But we've touched on this in a podcast. If you do not become an AI native, what will happen is you will become a victim of people using AI. We're already, if you spend too much time on your phone in Instagram or TikTok or whatever, your algorithms are using you. They're stealing your agency. They're stealing your time. And so a lot of people are passengers in cars they don't even know they're riding in. What we're saying is drive the car. Learn the tools, be curious, develop judgment, offload the boring stuff in your life, offload the stuff that doesn't excite you. I don't love doing email triage. I love having my agent do my email triage. I love getting notified about the things that matter to me, the things that don't. And so again, uh, Mike said in the very beginning, be skeptical. The conversation that's happening right now, I think about my dad being born in 1919, living on a ranch, horses only, that first tractor, that first car. I'm sure they were loved, and I'm sure they were hated. And I'm sure there were a lot of, and guess what? Cars won. Period. End of story. Now, Mike and I love horses. We're going to be going on a 3-day horseback ride this weekend with a bunch of good old timers. But I'm driving my
That's
truck
right. That
to
is this weekend.
yeah, I'm driving my truck to get there, right? So the reality is we're at this time right now where people are having this argument, AI good, AI bad, uh, AI's here. And it's powerful. I think if, guns are powerful, cars are powerful, information is powerful. It's how the power is wielded. Is it wielded with respect? Is it wielded with love and care for humanity? And our goal for everybody out there is use these tools to become a better father, a better husband, a better business person, a better member of your community. Don't have them replace your human connection, have them augment and give you more time for human connection. And that's we're on the cusp of personalized education, customized education. You can learn anything, any language, any skill. Be curious. What do you
Learn
need
to
to
play the
know? What do you
guitar, play the piano. All of that's
100%.
possible.
100%. And so, our goal on this show is to bring you guys to maybe help you think differently, share tools with you. And again, use, use a minimum as a minimum. Get Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude. Download them on your phone. They're free. And then once a month, do a $20 subscription and rotate, because and again, here's something that is where this bifurcation is coming from. If you don't have a subscription, you get a less intelligent tool. And with that less intelligent tool, if you're competing, so think about it this way: one executive assistant has a high school education, another executive assistant has a doctorate in 10 different disciplines. The leader leveraging the more empowered assistant is going to have a huge competitive edge over the one who doesn't. And so,
I was
um,
having a conversation with a buddy of mine who's a chef yesterday, and he's been using AI a bit and he's on one of the subscriptions. Oh no, he's got free everything. He's not on any subscription, and he was talking about some of the glitches that he's getting. And I don't think it's an understatement to say that to pay the $20 extra, whether you do it with Anthropic or you do it with OpenAI, will give you at least a 500% more capable um, response coder, graphic generator. That $20 is a huge markup. And and I'm paying more than that. William's paying more than I am on a monthly basis, but we're not paying thousands of dollars, but we are paying a few $100s a month to go through and get access to better models because we are finding limitations with the ones that we were using and want to get to the next step on the things that we're doing. And that may be an evolution, like a utility. You may find yourself that this is just going to be what I'm going to spend $20 a month or $60 a month, and this is just going to be just like paying for internet or paying for electricity.
Well, and I think of it more like investing in a team member. So I've got the $200 ChatGPT subscription. I just did the $100 Opus subscription, but I've got right now I've got 5 agent teams that are working behind the scene, building, creating, doing things. And they work while you're sleeping, and they move energy while you're sleeping, and they're producing while you're sleeping. So if I'm spending $300 a month on, well, 5 full-time team members that are actually doing productive work for me. That's crazy. I don't know what that works out to the hour. I mean, we can figure it out.
Right.
But
And speaking of the hour, we are probably getting closer to the end of our
yeah, a
little time.
little long in the tooth for episode
But
4. Yeah,
but don't be afraid to ask AI that if you're afraid you're not being productive, ask AI to come up with the metrics to figure out if you are doing spend or time, how it are measure yourself. Ask it the hard question and be ready for a real answer you may not like, or you may like a lot.
absolutely. And you guys, we love having you be a part of the Posse. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you haven't become a member of the Posse, there's a link below. You can get our newsletters and tools as they come out. We build them. And we will see you guys next week for another episode. And Schmitty, I will see you in a couple days for a 3-day ride, which I'm sure we'll have some stories about when we get back.
That'll be just terrible. It'll be nice to see you in person, William.
Absolutely. Thanks, you guys. We'll see y'all next week.
See you soon, guys.
Hell yeah, I was built for this.